Welcome to Seattle Voices. I'm Eric Liu. I'm delighted to have as my guest today Rahwa Habte. She's the co-founder of HIDMO. And Rahwa, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
So lots of people know HIDMO as a space and a place and a phenomenon, but will you tell our viewers who don't know it what it is and what it's all about?
Sure. Well, my sister and I, in 2006, decided to take over this little restaurant and lounge in the Central District on the corner of 20th and Jackson. And our idea was, we were Eritrean. Our idea was, this is a great way to share our culture, own a business, be entrepreneurs in a neighborhood that was very significant to us, the Central District, and also allow a space in a neighborhood that was important to us for activity to happen, for people to come, gather. We sort of imagined it as a community hub, but we didn't know what that was, going to look like. We thought people would just feel comfortable coming, grabbing a bite, checking in, just a cool business that people can come and do things in, have meetings in. And that idea just exploded into, at the time, I was involved, I would say heavily in the music scene here with a few specific artists, producing shows and helping out with, marketing, the things that they were working on. And we were both involved in our Eritrean community, doing youth work and doing women's groups. We'd both had a history of working actually at the time we were both working at a women's shelter. We were involved in all these different things. And so when we started spending all of our time in HIDMO, all of those worlds kind of followed us there. So the artists that I was working with at the time would come and meet there and would ask if they could do a show there or have, a meeting there or, whatever. The youth that I was working with would come and do homework there or come ask. We had Wi-Fi and would come and use our computers to do different things. Oh, I have a project due tomorrow, can I, and just being a space that was, we didn't run it like a traditional space. You're supposed to, have people seat people, give them their food, have them order their food, get their food and get them out of there. You're supposed to turn tables over, this and that. There's lots of space, and it did become a place where people came and hung out and just kind of shared, checked in. And and then in a very short amount of time, we just started getting known for the incredible music that happened there, because then as more and more artists started utilizing it, regular shows started happening, monthly showcases, weekly showcases, some of them that we helped to produce and promote, and a lot of them that were just, ideas that other people had that didn't have another place that they could have it, would say, hey, can I, do a monthly open mic here? Can I do an all-women's, showcase here? Can I do this?
And meanwhile, there still was a restaurant going on, right?
Yeah, there's a restaurant, there's a bar, and that was why we were so busy doing that. We were happy to have people come in and do their events, because I was used to producing events and doing shows and doing all this. I didn't have time to do any of that because I was trying to run a business. And so when people came and wanted to do shows there, I was like, yeah, that would be great. And it was also time for me to kind of enjoy, the music and the art and the stuff that I like. When it was at my restaurant, I didn't have to leave, to
So it sounds so incredibly organic how it happened. Looking back, how much of this would you say you intended to happen, and how much of it was really just people followed you and things happened sort of one after the next?
I would say, it's kind of that thing where, yes, I completely intended for it to happen. It's kind of my wildest dreams coming true. I was open to it and I wanted it to happen, but I didn't have a plan of how it was going to happen. But that me wanting it to happen and and allowing people to do programming there made it happen. So it wasn't intentional in that we said, in the first year, we're going to do this many shows and partner with this many nonprofits and have this many. We didn't intend it in that way, but it was our intention to, run a community, have a community space that was hopefully, like a vibrant space that lots of people could utilize for different things. And we did want, because we loved art and music, and because we loved the neighborhood, and because we loved working with youth and different things, we, it was intentional in that way, but it wasn't planned by us at all.
When you think back now over the evolution of this this cultural center, what do you feel like you've learned about how to create a space, how to create community? I mean, if you were now to, and we'll talk in a moment about how Hidmo is moving to a new space, but if you were doing something like in a whole other city without any background, what lessons have you learned about how to foster community in a space?
I've learned that just to kind of trust your gut, trust your intuition, trust your gut on things first and foremost, and also just trust other people also, that other people know what's right for them and who they are and what's good for them. Trust other people's expertise, and what I mean to say is trust that you don't know everything, because we had some of the things that we had even planned, because my sister and I were uncomfortable running a bar at the beginning. I mean, we were like, we had our liquor license, everything was legit, but we're like, we don't know about this whole bar thing. We learned that spaces have lives of their own. There are certain things that you can control, and there are other things that you can't control, and even though you don't have complete control, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. I don't know if I'm doing a bad job of creating it. But going into Hidmo, there were people that the space already meant something to, that the neighborhood, that those streets, meant different things to different people. And coming into it, it had a specific meaning for us. But recognizing that the same space, the same street, the same whatever, can have drastically different meanings, can mean very different things to different people, and to trust that this might be the way I see it, but other people have a different vision of it. And it's just kind of getting to know people and building trust with each other. Then
Where do you feel like you learned that? Because that's a hard thing to do as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, when you're starting a business, a lot of things you're trying to actually control, or at least plan, down to the nth degree. And you're talking about really this. Again, this idea of faith and trust that people will find the right way to engage the space. And was that a matter of temperament, or had there been past experiences for you in the music business or otherwise that gave you that sense of trust?
I think it's just all about personal connection. It really is. It's about getting to know a person, saying, okay, I'm, just establishing a relationship with somebody, and just getting to know them on a completely different level, and to, that's it. Just getting to know people.
Okay, so let's talk about how Hidmo's entering a next phase now. Tell us what's happening as we sit here in 2011. You all are making a transition.
Yes, so at the end of December, we decided to close the space on 20th and Jackson, which everybody was incredibly sad about, because so much community and so many memories had been created there, and some incredible energy had been built there. We had an opportunity last year. There's another incredible space that is going through a renovation of its own. It's a space called Washington Hall. It's on 14th and Fur, and it's a historic venue. It's over 100 years old now, and it's also, over time, has been this hub of community activity. Jimi Hendrix played in his first high school band there. Billie Holiday has performed there before. Tons of cultural and political, groups have called it home. It was a boarding house for a little time for I think the Dutch community. It was, run by the Sons of Haiti for another. It was a church. It's just this space with incredible energy. Lately, it's fallen into over the past couple of decades, it's fallen into disrepair. And so For Culture and Historic Seattle, with the help of For Culture, had purchased the building. And what they knew they wanted to do was preserve it and, fix it up physically. But another thing that I think both institutions understood is that, they wanted to be filled with community. They wanted it to be, vibrant again. And so they went through a process where they selected a few anchor tenants in Hidmo, and we went through the whole process of getting to know them and them getting to know us. And they decided that Hidmo would be a good fit to be housed in this space. And so right now, we're in the process of transitioning from the old space into the new space in Washington Hall.
And so as you do that, there's obviously a lot of logistical things to worry about, what the new space is going to look like and how it works and everything. What about the, as you were saying, the relationship side of that? Do you feel like that will seamlessly flow from one space to another because it's just about this network of relationships and it could go anywhere?
Yeah. I know that's the big risk that you take, right? That's a big risk that we have taken now in trying to move our community and the energy into this new space. But we are taking it very slowly. We're being very intentional. We're doing inter-community work. So, you know, touching base with each other about what made Hidmo special. What was it about that space? What was it about the community that we built there that, you know, was good, and what part of that can transfer? And we're not moving forward. We're not doing any programming, anything until we hear from the community. So there's been a transition team that's been meeting for the past couple of months. And this Tuesday, actually tomorrow, we are going to have our first community meeting at the hall where we're going to give an update on what we've been doing and some of the immediate plans. And we want to hear from people, you know, what they want to see and how they want to utilize the new space and the ways that the community needs support.
So in the old space, when you opened the doors and you had your friends in the music scene coming in and you had the young people who you'd been working with coming in doing their homework and you had others from the neighborhood coming in, again, how actively did you try, you and your sister try to actually stir the pot and get these people to actively engage one another, or was that another matter of just letting it happen and seeing if new connections would form among them?
Yeah, new connections definitely did form. Like, so we're involved in all these different things. And also, you know, there's lots of different activists, lots of different community groups, you know, advocacy organizations, civics, you know, whatever, just all kind of political, you know, folks that are super political all meeting. So because it is a public space, it's a restaurant, and people are coming there for something that everybody needs to do, eat, you know, or, you know, they just need a space to meet. On days that programming wasn't happening, that we weren't having an open mic or a specific event, you know, you'd have one table where the NAACP is meeting. You'd have another table, you'd have Youth Speaks, which, you know, was how youth spoken word organization that was meeting over here. You'd have, you know, a Filipino organization, a women's group that's meeting over here. And so when you have people that are just within a table of each other doing different things and all at the same time, a lot of things just happened organically because, you know, the space was there and because lots of different people, again, lots of different people called it home for different reasons. There's so many connections that were made there that probably would not have happened otherwise. And so we weren't, again, intentionally doing that, but we were intentionally opening the space up, and you know, not purposely, but not, you know, we told people to be flexible with the space. So, you know, somebody was like, you know, I want a meeting with 14 people. You know, I don't know how other people run their business, but we didn't say, okay, how much food are you going to buy, and you know, what's going to happen? You need, you know, we allowed them to use the space for free, and then if another group said, okay, we have a 10-person meeting that we want to have, we'd say, okay, you can come too. And we just move, you know, we allowed the space to be flexible. We'd move chairs around, and people were patient. People liked that, you know, it's constantly, you know, it looked different all the time. There's always different people meeting in there. There's always different things happening. And so that flexibility sort of allowed that to happen.
Will the new Hidmo also still be restaurant bar in addition to the civic hub and performance space? And
the new space will have a cafe. It won't be a full restaurant. Again, there's still this long process. What can we do to the building because it needs to be preserved? And so there are certain things that we can't physically alter the building in certain ways. There definitely will be a public space, whether it be a restaurant or a deli or a cafe. At this point, by summer, there should be a cafe open there. And then in the future, after renovation, we'll see what that can turn into. But again, we are still promoting, you know, besides things just happening at Washington Hall, we are going to promote, one thing that Hidmo showed is that there is a need for these kinds of spaces. And so there are tons of, you know, one of our community members branched off, and now he owns a cafe in the Central District called Cortona Cafe. And so we've been having our steering committee meetings there and supporting him and his
Union
business.
And,
yeah,
26.
yeah, exactly. And so there are other people that are community minded that want, we don't have the, we don't have the
monopoly on
the
this?
monopoly on community. We don't have the monopoly on that. Hidmo is fantastic, and we're secure in our identity and, the things that we're doing. But if there is no need for Hidmo to exist any longer, we'd be fine, supporting other people and their vision and their business. But as long as people do need space and do need support, and there are these communities that are kind of homeless and need, and need someone to just open their doors and say, "Come on in. You can, you're welcome to be here." Then we will exist.
I want to pivot to your own path to this work. You were. Well, tell me your whole, working backwards from this. When you and your sister started Hidmo, you said you both were working at a women's shelter.
Yeah.
How did you come to that, and how had you decided in the first place that doing work and service like this was going to be meaningful to you?
Well, my parents, again, we immigrated, we came here as refugees in 1983 from Eritrea. In East Africa. And so when we came here, there were not a lot of Eritrean families here. There were only a few. And
How old were you at the time?
I was 5. I was 5, and so it's me, my 6 brothers and sisters at the time. My little brother Temeskin was born here in our first year here in America, and my parents. So there was a bunch of us, but we were kind of all we had. And as Eritrean families started coming, we were sort of resettled in the same area in Mount Baker on MLK and McClellan. The apartment complex up there still exists. So it was us and other kind of refugee families that lived in these. And so we, not knowing the language, we had to kind of just do for ourselves. And so right away, the Eritrean parents would get together. We'd all get together and do things. And as time went, other families came, but we, being one of the first families, were always kind of who everyone looked to. And my dad is also a natural, just kind of leader in the community. And so they would always look to us to do programming, help people fill out paperwork, start sports teams or social groups and things like that. We were always the ones that people looked to. And we ended up founding a church and a community center that still exists on 24th and Spruce. The Eritrean Community Center there was founded during those early years. And so there we did everything. And again, it was very insular, just within the Eritrean community. When I left to college, it was my first time away from home. And then I went to college in Eastern Washington, not too far, but just far enough away where it was kind of like, oh, okay. I was used to doing so much every day that all I had was like studying to do. I'd never had that much freedom and time before. And so I had the natural inclination to organize. I didn't know it was called organizing. I didn't know it was called, service or whatever. I'd say, oh, there's a need here. And I kind of know how to do this. Oh, this program. And so I just started coming up with programming and started doing things in college. And I got voted for all kinds of awesome, I got all these awesome awards. I got to travel and got selected to do all these things. But I didn't know that I was doing anything special to deserve,
This
anything.
is just how you've been raised.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of, when you see a need, you kind of fill it, when you see. And also that whole thing about personal, seeing people. There's lots of people that, they're not going to kind of jump up and down and say, hey, I need, but we also had a knack for in our community, recognize, the quiet person or the person that might need help, that might be too proud to ask for help, or it wasn't about just the leaders standing up and down and doing that.
Was it at college or before college that that the arena where you would be this way extended beyond the Eritrean community and into a wider community?
It was just in college.
Just in college is
Yeah.
when it happened.
Yeah. I mean, we were involved in sports and activities in high school, but all our, it was sort of, we saved all our service and all that stuff for our, just within our community. College was the first time that I reached out, because there wasn't again, in college at Washington State University, there were not very many Eritreans. And so I had to look outside of that to, but again, there were no limits, because I already felt like an outsider culturally. There was nobody my culture. in college, I was vice president of the Samoan Club, you know, chair of the Coalition for Women Students. I was the PR person for the Filipino American Student Association, things like that, just things that are, and again, I got into those things by having a personal connection with a person, you know. My friend is in this club, I'd go with her to that club and be, you know, involved and help out volunteering or whatever in that club, and then I'd get voted into to be the vice president of the Samoan Club. That was kind of the most random, I think. I was like, okay, but I felt comfortable doing that because everything was outside of my culture and everything was outside of, you know, my identity. So, but then again, it also helped me learn that people, we, you know, have very distinct and different identities, cultures, you know, all of that. But there's a lot of common things that we share in common too.
How do you define your identity now?
Myself? Oh, I'm American. What do you mean? Like I'm a I'm a female, African American, Eritrean, Orthodox Christian, U.S. citizen, person that, you know, that was born in Edita and raised in Seattle, pretty much. Yeah, like I'm all these different things.
But it's interesting. I mean, American came pretty early in your list. Was there a time where American would have come lower in the list or later in the list?
I think senior high school, before going away to college, Eritrean would have been number one. I'm an Eritrean, I would have probably called myself girl. I'm an Eritrean girl that's, you know, Orthodox Christian. And now I say African American, you know, or black, you know, and then I say, I consider myself like black first, you know, and then American. Just,
And having grown up, you know, in Seattle, you know, it's interesting. Just the word African American can connote lots of things, right? It can connote African immigrant. It can connote native-born American blacks. For you, do you deliberately say that's all one big label, one big tent? And do you try to, you know, how much do you want to acknowledge the differences between African immigrant communities and African American native-born black communities here?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Because in applying for college, there was no mark for me to put African for most of my applications, so I would put other, and I'd write in Eritrean, because it is identified as Eritrean, not as a black person. But, you know, going to college, I was like, how come all my other, you know, cultural, you know, friends that are, you know, from cultural communities have like support mechanism? They got mentors and they got, you know, all these things that I didn't get, which I think would have helped me in college. Anyway, that's a whole different story. So I should have just marked black. But 25 plus years into this American adventure, you know, since coming to America, I look back now and I think, you know, we were settled in Mount Baker, in the hood, you know, in 1983. And while we were Eritrean, the world still saw us as black. And 25 plus years in this American adventure, I see that a lot of people that came to America around that same time, a lot of them ended up going to jail, being involved with gangs, you know, you know, all the same things that you know, were impacting the black community. It had the same impact, you know. It didn't discriminate, you know, it didn't discriminate. Like a lot of the Eritrean males that came with me, you know, ended up, you know, not as, you know, coming to not so great. So it is really important to recognize that, yes, we are Eritrean. We are definitely immigrants, you know. When I go home, it's, you know, my mom is dressed like an Eritrean. We are speaking Tigrinya at home. We have our own very distinct culture, and there are, you know, experiences unique to our community and barriers, you know, specific to our community. But it is, for me, it is also very important to acknowledge that we are also Black American. You know, we are Black people, you know, in this country, and that we share a lot with the Black non-African community.
You know,
and
you
a lot
say
of times,
that you know, you've said 25 years plus into your American adventure, and you're still so young. So what's interesting to me is, you know, over these years of, and so much of your adventure has been doing this work of connecting and creating community and organizing and so forth. Do you feel like how is it different today? Is it harder? Is it easier to create community, to reach out to people across different lines of identity? Do you feel like people are more open to this or more closed today than 10, 20 years ago?
I don't know about people, but I know that I'm better at it now because I'm more secure in like who I am and what I have to offer. And I'm a better listener now, you know, I'm better, like I'm able to do that, whatever it is, better. I mean, I'm better able to connect with people now than I did because I had all kinds of things that I was dealing with, you know, a long time ago. I wasn't as secure in my identity and reaching across the divide. But now that I am a little bit better at it, I see how easy it can be. You know, how much of, you know, I have learned how much of an impact that one person, I do recognize there are big systematic things in the works that are keeping lots of people, you know, media, and there are all kinds of things that try to keep people apart or keep people from engaging with each other. But I have also learned how, you know, even how one person really can make a huge impact in another person's life, and how one person can have a huge impact in the community that, you know, they live in the world that they live in.
What does Hidmo mean?
Hidmo means home. Hidmo, the word Hidmo, are the traditional huts that people in the countryside in Eritrea live in. In Ethiopia, they're called adgos. So it's a hut. And so it's a home, it's a house. And so we have the tagline, Hidmo means home, because it was a home for lots of different things in the community.
So in the last minute or so, I want to ask you, you talked about how, you know, different spaces have now spun off from people who've been part of the Hidmo family, right? Yeah. To what extent are you interested in again, affirmatively teaching others how to create their own spaces, whether they're coffee shops or other, you know, whatever it may be? Because it seems like you have a lot of experience that, I don't know, is it the kind of thing where if you try to teach it to somebody explicitly, the magic disappears?
No, I don't think so. I'm very interested in doing it. And again, like, we're talking about Hidmo's impact in Seattle. There are people in New Mexico that have contacted us saying, we came and we visited, we know all about your space, we want something like this in New Mexico. There's people in the Bay Area, there's people in Toronto that have contacted us saying that they want something like that. But we were able to do what we did because we so strongly identified with the neighborhood and the people. And Hidmo really was just an extension of who we were. And we put everything that we were into it. And I think that's what made it successful, because it was very genuine, it was very organic. And so I don't know that I could teach it, but if I visited New Mexico and got to know the people trying to run the, you know, I could,
it's all
I don't know,
yeah,
exactly. I would say, okay, so it's, you know, I can go and tell about my experience and how we did it and see if they can do that, but I don't know if, you know, I can. But I would be interested, because I think spaces like this are completely necessary, and I hope that they can open all over. I don't want to do them, but, you know, I would love to teach it if I could.
Well, we in Seattle are sure glad that there is a Hidmo here, and that there's going to be a new Hidmo soon at Washington Hall.
Yes.
And Rahwa, thank you for being part of this,
of course.
Making this part of your journey.
Yes, thank you, Eric, for inviting me.
My guest today has been Rahwa Habte. She's the co-founder of Hidmo, and you've been watching Seattle Voices. Please join us again, and thanks for watching.